Congressman Peter Hoekstra, he's the top Republican in the House Intelligence Committee, and he is calling for the FBI and the CIA to preserve all of the documents, all the information they have in regard to this case, and is looking for a full briefing as well before the House Intelligence Committee. Congressman, good to talk to you this morning. Let me ask you at the top here, how would you characterize the act that was perpetrated last Thursday at Fort Hood?
Well, I think there's a lot of evidence that we're starting to see come out that, I would tend to characterize this as an act of terrorism. Now, it's not directed necessarily by forces overseas. It doesn't have to be a conspiracy. It doesn't have to be a group activity. This is probably what I think will develop into one of the most dangerous forms of terrorism, someone who might have become radicalized through the internet and has decided to act on their own without any consultation with any others.
So would you put this kind of in the realm of an Oklahoma City bombing?
No, I think I'm not sure that I'd go in that direction, because I think that, it is a strategy of radical jihadists overseas to put in place the framework to radicalize people around the country. If you go back to some of the blogs and these types of things, you can read that al-Awlaki, the cleric in Yemen, it was part of his strategy to try to identify people in the U.S. military and incite them to attack their fellow soldiers. So there's a lot been written about that.
So you think that, unlike Timothy McVeigh, you think that he did have some, at least, influence from the outside?
Well, I think it's very clear that he had some influence from the outside. That is a strategy. We had a hearing on this in the Intelligence Committee 3 years ago. The extensive use of the internet, websites, and these types of things by radical jihadists overseas to influence behavior and thinking in other parts of the world.
Now, President Obama has asked people to be very cautious here, not to jump to conclusions. By saying that you believe this is an act of terror, are you jumping to a conclusion?
No, I said, I'm very clear. I believe that's, and I think that has to be investigated further. But I think with the signs and the information that we've seen, we've got to be very open to that being a possibility. Obviously, there's a lot of information that we still need to collect. That's what we'll do in the Intelligence Committee. We will peel back the layers, get as much information. Obviously, this individual has been under the observation of the FBI at least for a period of time in the last year. We just need to go back, get all the information, and then make a conclusion.
Right. The FBI was pretty clear what it thought in a statement last night, saying, quote, "At this point, there is no information to indicate Major Nadal Malik Hassan had any co-conspirators or was part of a broader terrorist plot." But I seem to take from what you're saying here that it doesn't need to be a broader terrorist plot for it to be an act of terrorism. But the FBI took a look at those communications that you mentioned between Major Hassan and Anwar al-Awlaki, the former imam at the mosque in Falls Church, Virginia. They took those communications after examining them to be benign. What's your opinion of that assessment?
Well, I have not had an opportunity to review the content of those emails or those communications, but I think you also have to take a look at the larger context. What are some of the things that Hassan, that he had said at meetings, that he may have put on his computers? Obviously, we don't know everything that the FBI may have found on his computers, on his neighbors' computers. Those are the things that we'll take a look at over the coming weeks.
Do you believe, Congressman, that there were red flags in this case that were missed?
Well, again, it's always very, very easy to go back in hindsight and look at decisions that could or should have been made. I tend to believe that the people who are looking at this issue are looking at it very seriously. We'll have to take a look at the scope of the work, how they're making these decisions. But John, I just think it indicates the uniqueness of the threat that we face today, how we're going to have to maybe change our decision parameters and how we deal with these threats and identify these threats in the future so that we can prevent them from happening again in the future. This is a very, very hard problem.
Now, just on the intelligence front here, you have asked, as we said at the top here, the FBI and the CIA to hold on to any information that they might have regarding Major Hassan. Do you think they know more than they have shared with you so far?
Well, I know that when we penned that letter on Saturday, I had asked the intelligence community on Friday for a briefing. I talked to them again on Saturday and Sunday, or Saturday a couple of times, and they refused to give me as the ranking member on the Intelligence Committee any information and any briefing. That was inappropriate. It's their responsibility to keep us fully informed and currently informed, meaning on a timely basis. I didn't think that they were doing that. And again, what we saw this week is a lot of the information came out in the press on Sunday and on Monday before they'd ever taken the time to brief Congress. I think that's just fundamentally wrong.
And there was a briefing of the so-called Gang of Eight, of which you are a member last evening, but you weren't there, correct?
That's right. I'm back in Michigan. The briefing took place in Washington. It's, again, why I wanted to have the briefing over the weekend. We were in Washington. I knew we wouldn't be in session this week. You know, it'll probably be next week sometime before most of us in the House have an opportunity to get the detailed briefing that they're now prepared to give us.
All right. Congressman Peter Hoekstra joining us this morning. Congressman, thanks so much. We'll certainly continue to stay on top of the story. Really appreciate your time, sir.